This episode of the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/gentscofflaw to help produce the show.
You are listening to the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast. Listener beware.
Rise and shine, the liquor store is open. I ain't got time for moping. I best be on my way. Well, I still got time to save my reputation. Time to go day drinking in this dirty little town.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Gentleman's Scofflaw podcast, the podcast for the rebel and the Renaissance man. I'm your host, Jordan Crowder. Co-hosting with me, as per usual, is the Donovan Fowler. How you doing, man?
Better than I deserve. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. You've been listening to a lot of Dave Ramsey, I see.
At one point in my life, I'm financially a wreck.
Donovan,
if I do confess,
a couple weeks ago was in finals, but now you seem to be back to normal chaos as opposed to extreme chaos. Maybe midterms,
not quite finals yet. Don't scare me like that.
I meant to say midterms.
We got one more midterm around the corner on Friday the 13th of all days. So we will, that'll be spooky one. Yeah. But it is property, lots of haunted houses out there. Got it. Actually, you know what? I just quick side note. I did deal with a case recently that had to do with a haunted house, which
really?
was pretty wild.
Talk about it, or is it?
Oh yeah, I mean you can talk like it's you can look it up.
You're not a real lawyer.
I couldn't say even if I was it's public, like you can look it up, but I don't remember the name of the specific case, but it was basically like a law in one of the states that had to do with disclosing like I think they call it psychological trauma. Oh. Yeah, that was what I had to look up in the database.
That was like Nathan For You tried to do something like that, didn't he?
I think that's probably something to that effect. But it's basically like if you're buying a house, there are certain places where they have to disclose whether there's like a haunting or if they've had like a meth lab in the garage, or like something that's attached to the house that makes it problematic, or you as the buyer have to ask. Yeah. So, like they can sell it to you and then you find out it's haunted later and they're like, well, you should have asked. Sorry,
you should have checked the haunted laws.
Yeah. You should have knocked. Yeah. When you walked in, you should have thrown holy water and knocked twice on the wall.
Exactly. Let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping. I forgot to do this.
Housekeeping.
As you know, it's International Corncob Pipe Month, the month of November. Every November is International Corncob Pipe Month. So I am smoking my Country Gentleman Cob, which is one of my favorite pipes. Cracked the shank this week. My fault. Tried to put a stem in there that was too big. A forever stem, which is actually really cool, which we're going to talk about later. One of these episodes coming up. But I didn't read the instructions. But it still works. And I am smoking some cigar box from Idlewild, California. This is their heavy English blend. I'm smoking that. And I'm using an Elkhorn tamper today.
Ooh.
Yeah. What do you got there, Donovan?
Very cool. Very cool. I have, let's see, this is High Plains Drifter, which I bought at my local cigar lounge, Outlaw Lounge. They've got some custom blends over there. So it's pretty good. It's got, a little bit of scotch going with it. I would say I'm missing the cherry, if I do say so myself. I am missing that cherry. So I'm gonna have to go on the hunt and maybe order another pack of that. But but in the meantime, this does the trick. And every day is a good day for a Simpler Times.
Simpler Times. I've got some Red's Wicked Apple cider going on left over from Halloween weekend. So
that's Wicked Apple. What is with the British? I was recently talking to somebody about the British and their obsession with cider. Maybe if we have any British listeners out there, they can enlighten us on why the British are so big on cider.
Yeah, what's that all about? Let us know. I should say later on the show, we're going to have Jared Chandler, writer, director, actor, consultor, producer, everything and anything that involves the movie business he's done.
He's a master of many trades.
Yes, worked on many films, many beloved films that you would know. And we'll talk to him for a while, which it should be a good time. What are you up to this week, Donovan?
Oh gosh, what am I up to this week? It's today. I just studying, man. I mean, luckily, I that cigar lounge that I was talking about has a lot of comfy leather chairs, which is essential in a cigar lounge. And it's also very spacious. It's not your typical kind of just like, it's not cramped. Let's just put it that way. It's basically, I think it used to be a restaurant. So there's many different rooms. And you can basically, if you go on the right day, you can get your own room to yourself and just study away. So I'm going to be consolidating knowledge on torts, contracts, property, and criminal law. So that's going to be fun.
Good times.
And other than that, probably just kick back with some bourbon this weekend. And I don't know what, maybe watch a movie, try to figure out a good flick to catch.
Good flick. Maybe a new flick or an old flick. Who knows?
Typically these days I'm going old. I'm going with the classics. Nothing new is super impressive to me.
I'm trying to think of what this week. I am super sore. I helped a friend in Studio City move up several flights of stairs for 2 days in a row.
That's the biggest humble brag ever. Oh, I'm so sorry. Not only are you saying, oh yeah, I'm totally worked out this week, you're also saying, I'm such a good person. I helped a guy move.
No, granted, he did pay all of us because we were friends, and he was going to pay professionofessionals. So it was very generous of him.
Yeah. Now you're just rich. You're just bragging about your wealth.
But it was funny. Like, you realize, like, sometimes when you're moving somebody who is well more off than you, or you pick up a frame, and you think you're just picking up some random art piece that, like,
most
people have in their apartments and houses and for decorations.
Like some knockoff or some Target, some Target painting frame of like a wolf with like a blue sky behind it.
And you just kind of pick it up really willy-nilly, and then you realize it's an original Thomas Kincaid. So that was my
Kincaid. It's funny. I don't even know. I know the name Thomas Kincaid. I can't put any of the paintings to mind, but just the name Thomas Kincaid screams fancy artist to me.
He's very famous for painting light, a lot of like winter kind of scenes, cabin. Like you see him a lot of Christmas kind of decor and Christmas cards and that kind of stuff. But what he's known for is painting really cool like light, like replica. He's able to create the look of actual light coming across, water, snow, windows, that kind of stuff.
I'm seeing it now. What was this in particular? I mean, you don't have to say the name of the painting, but what was it of?
It was definitely one of the winter scenes, but it's so hard to, why? I don't remember.
I don't know if this is real. I just found one that is like, it's if people are out there, and Thomas Kincaid, or you're looking it up, it's like this nice little gumdrop cottage, very, very fairy tale-esque, very, idyllic, like you were saying, with all the light and the glow and everything. Yeah. And just off to the upper left-hand side in the sky is this massive Star Destroyer that's on fire. And it looks like it's crashing. It's very bizarre. I don't know. I doubt Mr. Kincaid is the one behind that, but who knows? Maybe he had a flair for Star Wars.
Maybe he did.
He did do some Disney stuff, it looks like. So maybe
interesting.
Maybe he did do maybe he was a Star Wars fan. I don't know. Yeah. Have to get don't know words, cozy up to his work and get acquainted with it. That's what I was saying. That's what I was
you'll
trying to
see
say.
it in a lot of Christian Christmas kind of. I don't want to say memes, but like
Sure.
shareable kind of stuff. You see it a lot this time of year as it comes up. What we should do is we should take a quick break because we got a lot to talk about with our guest Jared Chandler today. By the way, it's Veterans Day. Make sure you thank a veteran for their service. And we'll be back and we'll announce the winner of this month's giveaway after we talk to Jared. Men or women, this one's for you. Let me take a second to talk to you about GoRuck. Now, you've heard us on this show talk about their awesome endurance events, which are, great for fitness and team building. But of course, they are known for their amazing gear. Some of the best gear in the world, actually. I myself own a GR1 rucksack for all my rucking and training. I also have one of their 30-pound ruck plates, which is so convenient because I could just drop it in the laptop compartment on my bag, and I have a weighted ruck. It's super cool. But one of my all-time favorite things that they offer are their sandbags. Now, if you've never trained with a sandbag, you're in for a treat. I love that you can keep it in the trunk of your car and take it to the park, and you have a gym anywhere. Ever try doing sandbag man makers with 60 pounds? I mean, you get a fun and very hard training session in really quickly. It's a big bag of suck in all the right ways. Now, even if you're not in the rucking, they have tons of sleek apparel for the outdoors in addition to their gear that is tough as nails and built to military standards. Also, their apparel and gear offer their scars a lifetime warranty, so you buy the item once and that's it. You're set for life. But you know what the greatest thing is about GoRuck? All of it is made in the good old USA, and by Special Forces veterans, mind you. It doesn't get more badass than that. That's right, America. To check out GoRuck gear, go to gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck, and anything you buy through that link helps support the show. That's gentlemanscofflaw.com/GoRuck. Whether it's for your fitness regimen, your outdoor lifestyle, or just, a great bag for everyday carry, you're going to want to check them out. GoRuck, built in the USA. All right, I'm really excited to have this guest. He's a multi-hyphenate and has a storied career, working in a bunch of different places, from being a writer, director, consultant, Hollywood creative. I don't know what to call you, Jared. Thank you for coming on, Jared Chandler.
Hey guys, yeah, I don't know what to call myself either. That is like literally one of the hardest questions you can ask. Is, when somebody goes, "Oh, so what do you do?" Yeah. And I just take a breath in. You got 20 minutes? Well, I figure
you're a Renaissance man. That's what you are.
I guess. I think what it is I just like to keep busy.
Yeah.
I've juggled my adult life between the military and the film industry and, other pursuits. But even in the film industry, it's just like I do 5-6 different things. And that way I'm kind of never static, Yeah. I just like moving forward and, creating things or problem solving, or killing and breaking things, whatever the mission is.
Whatever the mission is. Yeah, you're a moving target. I'd love to give our listeners who don't know you just a little bit of a background of kind of like where you came from, how you got into the movie industry, that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I grew up in an Army family. My dad did 34 years of active duty, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was a lifer, yeah. So I grew up in that environment. My sister turned me on to theater at some point. And then in my high school years, I was pretty much just surfing. And then I kind of really got the acting bug. And by then, my dad had retired. We were in Southern California, so I started going up to Hollywood and auditioning for television shows and things, kind of like my last year and a half in high school. So I immediately moved up upon graduation with, the goal of becoming a working actor. I got my SAG card a year to the day I moved there on a film called In the Mood, starring Patrick Dempsey. And then I started getting bigger opportunities, like the film La Bamba. I screen tested for that. It was between Lou Diamond Phillips, myself, and another guy. Then I ended up on a TV show called the New Monkees, which was a remake of the original show, and it was created by the original producers as well. And that was a weird one. It's like, here I was 19 years old, and here's a record deal and a TV show, and who's going to say no? I mean, I didn't want to be the new anything, but it was kind of like B-school, so it was really fun, and made some lifelong friendships with my bandmates and met my first wife. She played my girlfriend, so there were a lot of pluses. It only lasted a year, which was awesome, and then I was on to other things. And then we had a big strike in Hollywood way back when in like 89, 90. I ended up going into the Army Reserve. I was kind of, I was actually getting bored with the acting thing. Yeah. So I ended up coming back to the Green to Gold program and was placed at UCLA to become a lieutenant. And I fell back into the business as while going to school. I started teaching defensive handgun and home defense and things to celebrities and training actors. And then I got a chance to co-star in a film called Flight of the Intruder for director John Milius. So there I was, with Willem Dafoe and Danny Glover. And,
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's such a huge opportunity, but I really hit it off with John because I was a lifetime fan of Milius, Big Wednesday and Wind and the Lion and all of his great films. He wrote Apocalypse Now, and John just took it. I don't know. It wasn't an active decision, but somehow he took me under his wing. And when he was taking the book Clear and Present Danger and transposing it into a screenplay, he was originally going to direct it, but that didn't happen because John is his own worst enemy and often part of the studio. So I've learned both good and bad from him. Somehow I was still asked to be on the project. So it was about counter drug. I mean, the book really, I don't think really showed like what the war on drugs was, like. I mean, it's a novel. It's a great novel. It's a fun story, but
Tom Clancy, right?
Yeah. And at that point I was serving the reserves at Sauk South, and the number one mission was counter narcotics, counter narco proliferation, excuse me, I haven't said that word in a while. So, it was my first job as a military tech advisor. I just kind of fell into it, and just happened to be standing in the right place at the right time, and then just started getting calls for it after that came out. So, I was never the most experienced guy, but I usually know enough or can bring Pizos in to fill in for my lack of depth of knowledge in certain things, because a movie can go the gamut from the fire team level to the national security level, so I have a great group of folks that I can tap into when I need them. And since then, basically was doing that, throughout the 90s. And when the GWAT kicked off, 9/11, pursued that, left service in 2003 and worked as a military contractor, intelligence contractor for a little while, and then ultimately became a filmmaker for the Department of Defense and the Army, which led to work for the Air Force and the intelligence community, where I created sort of like episodic visual training. They're sort of like choose your own adventures. So
cool.
Like I was the director of the Army's Cultural Awareness Program, the 360. So soldiers would go through this cultural/tactical training, how to discern different tribes, how to deal with the hierarchy of village elders, all of these, a lot of really subtle stuff too, in different areas of operation. And then they will watch an episode, which looked like an hour of Bruckheimer television, basically, not your dad's training film. Yeah. And as you get into a major scene, you come to a decision point. So now what are you going to do? Do you accept the offer of tea with the sheikh? Do you tell him choice B? No, I'm here for business. Let's get it on, buddy. Yeah. Or 3, search his house and tell him to sit down, whatever it is, Yeah. And then each decision point has an outcome. So it's fun as a filmmaker because I got to film like 3 or 4 outcomes for every scene.
Wow, that's so cool.
It was interesting work.
What is the right answer to that, by the way? Do you take tea with a shake or
training, my man? Here, Donovan, sign this pink piece of paper. It'll only cost you 4 years of your life.
Gladly.
We had great metrics. That was one of the best things, as far as satisfaction of supporting the war effort and my brothers and sisters is there were 2 things is, imparting them with some knowledge which came from those communities. I mean, I've gotten to know, so many great American Afghan, American Iraqis, American Iranians, Somalis, basically citizens, first generations or second generations of those nationalities, and just to see how they rose up to support our forces during the GWAT, really proved themselves to be great Americans, working as battlefield terps and cultural experts and all the different things that those communities did. That was a satisfying part of it. And then also the production company we founded was Combat Film Productions, then became Dagger Media Group. We had the ability to literally recruit, soldiers, veterans, in one case, right out of Walter Reed, from bed to our office. Wow. Like, get on a plane, come to LA, you got a job. And what I did was basically pair up incoming veterans with film professionals. And in some cases, they were veterans as well. So we trained up a bunch of, enthusiastic young kids who'd been there and done that, and basically guided them into, into the film, television industry, video game industry. So that was really satisfying. And we still continue that work to this day. Never really formalized it. There's a lot of people that do that. That's their number one focus. To us, it's just, it's just ingrained in what we do, and we just do it because we have to. So, it's the most satisfying part of being a filmmaker is actually when there's a purpose as opposed to just entertaining.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's it. And I feel like too, I don't know, I've never been in the military, but I feel like there's a lot of probably like crossover from the way like movies are made and the way crews are put together. It's very much a team kind of effort that I feel like that would translate into that very well.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because one of the things that really helped me understand once I got behind the camera and got out from in front of the lens, is I realized like each department's a platoon, and then you've got squads within it. Department heads are basically platoon leaders. And then, you've got the key, that's a platoon sergeant, and it all, basically it's a rifle company or a battalion in movement at all times, remote, going to locations, we've got our log plan. I mean, I could easily, do I could put it on paper right next to, an op-ord, a 5-paragraph op-ord, and it would look very similar. It's just the chow and the pay is better. And they'll be shooting at you most of the time.
Most of the time.
I was going to say, I think that's what Milius, I remember reading kind of a quote from him or something in his documentary years ago, that he was never in the military, but he always had a love for the military and war and everything like that.
John was a great supporter and enthusiast for, the common soldier or sailor, airman. Marine. Yeah. I remember I escorted John up to a sniper symposium back at Old Fort Ord, 7th ID. Manchus were hosting it with the West Coast FBI firearms team. So Milius was this big portly man, We show up, it was actually like the old dance hall down Seaside. And this building is literally filled with like 100 of America's deadliest snipers. And the guest instructor is the Carlos Hathcock, the legend.
Oh yeah, the white feather.
The white feather. So John's the only civilian there, and nobody quite knew who he was, but, he's a big, bearded, gruff guy, And at that point, he had actually lost like 50 pounds, so he was fairly fit, and he was surfing again.
Yeah.
He was still, he was still round, though, but fit. I mean, I'm doing a shit ton of BJJ, even way before it was popular. Somehow he gets up during a water break, falls over, knocks his chair over. All these government, typical folding metal chairs, just takes out like 50 chairs. Clang, 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 just goes on and on. Everybody just stops. These guys are just like, who the fuck is this guy? John just stands up and just looks at the room and goes, these are my people. And immediately, like 5 dudes, the whole room just laughed. 5 dudes went over, put their hands out. Hey, who the fuck are you? That's the John Milius I knew.
That tracks. That seems to track with everything I've heard about him. That's awesome.
What a great guy. But I learned a lot from him. I was his development exec for a while. I learned a lot about writing and, the discipline of that, and directing. John, everybody just, everybody loves his films, and you wonder, why doesn't he make film? Why, he sort of got cut off, The last time I worked with him in front of camera and behind was on the Rough Riders, which is a TNT miniseries. It was kind of it was a big one at the time. It was kind of like the original Band of Brothers, but it was Teddy Roosevelt and his crazy bunch of cowboys. But, John is such a deep thinker and such a grand storyteller, whether it's a movie or sitting around the campfire, such a lost art. Yeah. How somebody that great could just kind of disappear, and nobody goes, hey, where the fuck? Why don't you guys let him make movies? But, that John was very conservative and outspoken, and that caught up with him professionally, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it's so much of the stamp that he's made on the industry and on storytelling, a lot of people wouldn't even know, because he wrote so many great speeches for all these great movies that he wasn't necessarily credited with. Like Jaws, he wrote the USS Indianapolis. He wrote the speech in Hunt for the Red October. And, Dirty Harry, I think Make My Day was his thing. Oh, sure. And I mean, it is, he's like, larger than life kind of guy. And it is a shame that, I was actually at USC at the same time as his daughter. So she's out doing stuff right now. Yeah.
Amanda has a film out. I actually want to see it.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
I hear that.
Yeah. She's got a doc out, and she made a short film out there. Before she went into some government work, kind of doing similar stuff, it sounds like, to what you were doing, in the sense that it sort of covered like one end of media, but also one end of like something more purpose driven in terms of, making videos for, I think, the administration. But yeah, anyways, what an absolute legend. That's awesome that you got to work with him. I mean, that's just
I was so lucky. It was
learn from him.
He'd have, when we weren't when we weren't in production, pretty much every Friday we'd have, pizza night. So people would be, leaving the studio lot at 6:00, going home for the weekend. People would trickle into Milius's office. I mean, you never knew who was going to show up. I mean, sometimes it was Ed O'Neill,
nice.
Tom Selleck, Francis Ford Coppola, Rennie Harlan. I mean, you just never knew who was going to show up. Wow. And it was great, and even some other guys most people wouldn't know, like Phil Spangenberger, the editor of Guns and Ammo magazine. And I mean, there was always somebody interesting coming through the doors, and you get into these wild ass conversations with people.
Yeah.
Like, Bob Brown, the editor of Soldier of Fortune magazine, It was like, holy shit,
Yeah. That'd be I'd love to be a fly on a wall at one of those parties. It'd be a lot of fun.
It was a good time.
So, you've done a lot of work on tons of cool stuff. One of the things I love this movie as a kid. the Operation Dumbo drop. I love to talk about that movie.
One of my favorite projects.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a, true story.
Yeah.
Bizarre. It's a, Disney film that takes place during the Vietnam War. And if you notice in the film, we never really shoot any the NVA or Viet Cong. We just sort of beat them up and butt stroke them because it was a Disney movie. But it's a true story based on an SF mission called Operation Baroom, which was to resupply friendly Montagnard mountain village tribes with elephants because the NVA and the VC were killing their elephants if the tribes cooperated with the U.S. Wow. So SF, Special Forces, had this great idea to parachute elephants in because some of these villages were so remote. So in reality, Major Jim Morris, a legend in SF, and also a former editor and chief writer, Soldier of Fortune. I grew up reading him. He covered it for Green Beret or for Dia Presso Libre, the in-country SF magazine, and it ended up getting picked up, optioned, and I met him through Milius and had grown up reading his novels, War Story, Devil's Secret Name. Had a big impact on me as a young man and then as a young soldier, and never realized I was going to one day get to, call him friend. I actually lovingly call him Uncle Jim. But he invited me to join him as an advisor because he'd never worked on a film before. We went over to Thailand, put the actors through a week of field training. Basically, they lived as a team out in the boonies. The jungles of northern Thailand, and there was still is longest running bush war going on the border, Thailand, and then called Burma, now Myanmar. And Jim had been there several years earlier covering the Karen and Thai Special Forces and stuff. So behind the scenes, we, of course, fell deeply into that world and started running an intelligence net with these two half Thai Canadian combat correspondent buddies we had. Ended up doing guerrilla link ups on the other side of the border and feeding intel to the USM. And turns out the whole time we were making the movie, the Vietnamese American that we had cast as the NBA colonel was actually the head of the DEA task force out of Bangkok. So as we were leaving all these Thai towns, like we leave Mae Hong Son, that day a DEA task force and like Thai National Counter Drug Forces would come in and roll up all the locals. It was literally on the second day of shooting. On the second day of shooting, we had three Hueys airborne. We were flying on the border, and we actually overflew the border into Myanmar, and it was an area controlled by a gentleman, I wouldn't call him that, a war drug lord named Kun Sa, and he ran the United Shan Army, the USA. Wow. So we're shooting air to air, helicopter to helicopter, and doing like these, basically air assaults into HLZs, and all of a sudden, all the early warning stuff starts going off in the Hueys, and we're actually being painted by anti-aircraft missiles. Wow. And over the radio comes this voice from the United Shan Army saying, you have 20 seconds to get the fuck out of here, or we're blowing you out of the sky. We were overflying opium fields. Wow. So we flew back over the border. We shut the set down for a day. This actually made Variety and The Hollywood Reporter back then. Yeah. So they sent a representative to the set, and we actually had to make a little treaty with these guys, that we wouldn't wander into their areas anymore. And so there was a lot of real world drama going on in between, and then ultimately some other things happened, and we decided to just compress on the Fort Bragg of Thailand called Lop Buri, and we just shoot out the rest of the movie there because now they were threatening to kidnap Danny Glover and Ray Liotta. So all of a sudden, over the weekend, we take a Christmas break, right? We come back the day after Christmas, And all of a sudden, like the grip and electric department has grown by like 50 members each. And they all have like high and tight haircuts. They're wearing like, Ray-Bans, and they're all these just super fit, just little fire plug tie guys, they're obviously all Thai military or Secret Service. Yeah. And it was hilarious with this like army of like, minions, and they all wore turquoise t-shirts because that's what the Thai grip and electric departments wore. So there's like this sea of turquoise biceps everywhere. Finally,
so these guys were your protection?
Yeah, they were protection.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we shot like a bunch of stuff there, fire-based sequence and some other shit. And then finally Disney just got so haired out, they sent everybody home while they reconfigured. I ended up staying in Thailand and got to go through the Thai Halo course, the military freefall course there.
Nice.
And then went to the graduation course of their Ranger School. I was drilling it for reserve points at the U.S. Embassy. So the JessMag team hooked me up. And I knew a bunch of the Thai SF guys by then. So I basically spent a month just fucking around with Thai SF. So that was really fun. Got to run around the jungle with those hard little dudes. But then finally we stood the production up again in Florida on the Disney Ranch. And we shot out the rest of the movie, on the Disney Ranch right outside, Disney World.
But, depending on where you are in Florida, it might be, it might be a little bit more dangerous than the Thai border.
Yeah, that's true.
But how did that overlap happen? Where did you get contacted because somebody knew that you guys were going over there on this Disney film, and basically it just kind of fell into place that this became an intelligence op? I mean, is that basically what happened?
Well, I mean, there's two things there's two ways to look at this. Is I usually when we're shooting overseas, I'll talk to the country team because I want a country brief, and any American citizen can do that. But the depth of the brief is dependent on who's asking. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And who's going to give it to you. The senior guy there was an Army major. I'm not going to mention his name right now, but literally one of the coolest officers I've ever met. He was like a prior enlisted infantry guy and then a medic, had a giant flame tattoo on one forearm. I'm like, that's my kind of officer. This is the early 90s. That's way before everybody was all that up, I like this guy. So, we just asked for a country brief, and then that ended up, in a conversation. And then it was like, well, hey, while you're up there, got this wink and a handshake. And then the B plan is we would have done whatever the fuck we wanted to do anyway, because that was Jim Morris's world, the intrigue of Southeast Asia. I mean, the man spent, 6 tours in Vietnam,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then went into Cambodia after he was out of the Army and ran around as a war correspondent with Al Rockoff and all those, crazy dudes, and Tim Page. So, I would have followed Jim into whatever. We were, on an adventure, I guess.
That is quite the adventure.
Who would have thought? Operation Dumbo Drop was the film where that was the background? Like I would have thought, Apocalypse Now, or Platoon maybe, but any other hardcore movie. But here you are filming this G-rated Vietnam tale, and this is the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's crazy, man.
Well, I'm glad you liked the movie, Jordan. That you liked it as a kid. That's cool. That's why we do these things. Hopefully, because I really love that movie. And years later, they still have a positive vibe from it, and I like films, that have, characters that need, some sort of in search of redemption, Danny's character in that is like, old school, basically plank owning SF guy that's been there for, multiple tours. And now he just wants to go home and, roof houses with his brother in Florida and wonder what happened, what it was worth. And then you've got Ray Liotta, the super achiever, death from above, dagger between your teeth guy who just wants to get some. Yeah.
A real snake eater.
Yeah, he learns kind of, it's about human operations, I mean, I think that's really what warfare is. If you're going to win it, have those successful human terrain,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You've worked on so many things, but I'd love to talk about your work on Call of Duty. I mean, how does your work from, film, how does that funnel into working on Call of Duty?
Yeah, that was a crazy happenstance. When we had our production company going hard and heavy, this was like 2008. 7, 8, something like that. Yeah, 2007 or 8. Anyway, we literally had like 10 or 12 Xboxes networked at our offices. And depending on the workload, either about 5:30 or 6 every day, we would just get on and play on the local network. And it was all Call of Duty.
Yeah.
This was, I think, World at War was what we were playing then.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one. That one gave me nightmares.
Yeah. So we were huge players, and I'd been like a gamer since, I don't know, like the late 90s, PC, eventually kind of transitioned on the consoles. But we were really into it. And one of a producing partner and mentor of mine, Ken Robinson, who was a retired Army officer, creator of the TV show E-Ring, and former commander of Centra Spike. I don't know if you know who those guys are. The Activity. Basically, they took down, Pablo and running around chasing Fair ID'd in Somalia. Well, I knew Ken and supported his unit as a member of SOC South at one point. But we ended up linking up here in this Hollywood battle space. And his brother, God rest his soul, Steve Robinson, was a huge advocate for veterans' rights. He was the one that called out Walter Reed early for all the hygiene problems they were having there and what a kind of a shithole it was turning into for guys and girls. Wow. Well, Steve was doing a lot for veterans, and Activision contacted him about how could they help. They were making so much money off of Call of Duty leading up to Modern Warfare 2 that they wanted to create an endowment for veterans. Wow. It ultimately became the Call of Duty endowment. So they wanted to premiere the endowment and its goals with the release of Modern Warfare 2. So Steve told them about us, about Combat Film Productions. So he said, let these guys come up with, some branding and the way to, splash the opening. So I created, Steve and I created basically a commercial. We pitched it, we pitched it, shot it, posted it within a week. And it's basically a 2-minute spot. It's the most violent commercial ever. If you want to see it, go on YouTube, look up Call of Duty Endowment Director's Cut. Okay. And it's basically an ODA in a gunfight in Afghanistan, and it's like a day at the office. And they're in this hellacious gunfight. Yeah. And as they're unassing this target because they're calling in fire onto the position and this surrounding area, the team leader's tapping his guys out, getting a head count as they leave the compound. And as the last guy clears, he turns and looks at the camera and says, we're fighting over here for you. We hope you'll fight for us when we get home. Right. And then it's like Call of Duty endowment, educating, assisting, veterans with job placement and education and all this, bam. So we did that, and it really left a mark at Activision. They really enjoyed it. They felt like it was a representative of their brand, I guess, and the accurate portrayal of the operators in it, soldiers. So they asked me to join the developmental team for their next game, Black Ops. And that was the original Black Ops. It
was legendary.
So, me and a couple of my guys, Hugh and Owen, a bunch of people went in there. Started out with the character team and the weapons team, and basically we ultimately really designed almost every character in Black Ops from head to toe.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we tapped into one of couple of the coolest collections of soft gear, and captured NVA and Viet Cong items from the Vietnam War around, and then we were able to import like Spetsnaz scuba gear and freaking, Dart submachine guns and all this crazy stuff we found around the planet to help, elevate the game. And it was a big hit. I mean, I was blown away how much money that thing made. It set the record. It was like, was it like 375 million in 24 hours?
I had many a college roommate who failed maybe a course or two because of late nights playing Black Ops when we all should have been, studying and writing papers. I remember the impact that had on the culture.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like my wife would be like, "What are you doing? It's midnight." I'm like, "I'm working, honey."
Yeah.
This thing pays the bills. This is quality control. And the most ridiculous part about it is like, almost our entire like staff, the company is scanned into that game. So in multiplayer, we're like running around shooting each other, and it's really like our faces.
That's
the funniest shit. Yeah, it's so fun. But yeah, and then it kind of turned into a long-term collaboration with them. And I've worked with the different studios and had a lot to do with the advertising. Like I directed most of the key art shoots for the covers, like Black Ops, we call him Sitting Joe, or Sitting Bull. It was a guy, actor named Joe Anderson. He's a first ID veteran, and he's been in a bunch of things I directed. I always liked him because he looks like Steve McQueen, and he's a good actor. But all of a sudden, fucking Joe's on every flat surface known to man when he came up with that picture,
Yeah.
And it's a warrior in repose, And I was like, yeah, let's give him akimbo 45s,
And they have the markings on them and everything. Yeah, that was so. I saw that on so many buses in LA. That was
put a Montyard
awesome.
bracelet on him,
Yeah.
And we custom painted his fatigues like the SOG teams did. My guy Owen did that, and it was really cool, But it was just us getting creative, and I was doing a lot of Kundalini yoga then, so. To me, it was like warrior at rest, Yeah. He's literally sitting in a fucking yoga pose, and nobody figured that out. It was a really great experience, and it continues to be. We've got I've been working through the pandemic, luckily, on the Call of Duty title for 2021, and the year prior to that, while I was on Top Gun Maverick for a year.
Sweet.
And on the side, working on the Vietnam elements for the reboot of Black Ops.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's been a long-term deal with them, and they're a pleasure to work with. And the fact that they really put their money where their mouth is and have helped so many veterans and place them in educational environments and in work environments. And it's just a great company that gives back,
That's awesome to hear. I'm not as much of a gamer as Donovan is, but it's always cool to hear companies that are. You know what the problem is? My hand-eye coordination is terrible.
I was always just shooting them up,
Jordan, you just gotta dedicate a little time, dude.
Yeah,
that's all it is. Just take your bumps. You'll get there.
Yeah,
but that is super awesome. I mean, like to see like the private sector work out like that to help out veterans and stuff, to like, especially off Call of Duty, which, I mean, up until that point had been making, I mean, they were just one of the biggest franchises out there. And then Black Ops elevated it to a whole new level. And then on top of that, like the education of Black Ops itself, not a lot of people know about the Black Ops history in Vietnam, and it's fascinating. I mean, it's really interesting stuff. Like I was fascinated to learn like stuff like the, SEALs in Vietnam wore blue jeans because the fatigues wouldn't really hold up in the water, and just like all these guys like creatively, that poster encapsulated it, just this sort of creative warfare that you see in the movies kind of as a caricature, but it's pretty awesome to learn about, and
there is an education aspect to the game. There definitely is. Like, I mean, the reboot of Modern Warfare just recently. I mean, that's Syria, and that's going on right now. I mean, they call it a different country, but it's clearly the Syrian conflict.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn a little. I sort of stepped aside doing some other stuff when they went way into the future.
Oh yeah, right.
I did like a 2. Except for the advertising stuff, I didn't really participate in Advanced Warfare, and I forget the other one. Sorry, guys.
I kind of stayed away from that one because I feel like
all of a sudden they went Halo, and I was like,
yeah,
need of my services.
Kind of lost its way.
Even like that, looking into like I remember like Black Ops 3, it was that near look into the future. Mm-hmm. And now you're starting to see that with drone swarms being used in the Azerbaijan conflict right now.
Yeah.
So even in that sense, before it got too Halo-ish, there was some educational value because, they were utilizing, some of these, leading defense experts that, like Michael Singer and a couple other guys that like have, really their thumb on where warfare is going,
Yeah.
And also the proliferation of information. And we're seeing that now during our election.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
Manipulation. So
yeah, no, I mean, that is like to be able to have a view. I mean, that's super unique place to be. Like you said, like to have this futurist view, but also be able to showcase the past. I mean, right now, aren't they, isn't the new one Cold War? I think I saw an ad for that the other day. I saw Reagan's face on there, and I was like, whoa, like what is this? And it was Cold War. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It looks pretty awesome. Yeah,
there's a good Vietnam sequence in there that I did a lot of work on for that.
Nice.
So it's sort of like it's a nice stretch across the Cold War experience because it literally does go up into Iran-Contra, some other things I don't give it away, but yeah.
That's super cool. One other thing that you worked on, probably the only movie, maybe the only movie worth seeing that came out during the pandemic this year. Do you want to talk about your work on that and how you got involved with that?
Which one was it?
Was it Tenet? Is that the?
Tenet.
Or maybe I guess Top Gun might be coming out too. I don't know when that comes out.
Well, it was so weird because I did this movie Greyhound like almost 3 years ago.
Oh yeah,
the Tom Hanks Navy movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then I went right on to Top Gun. I was on it for a year and a week. That's a record, And then the last month or so of Top Gun, I had started Tenet. I was actually on both movies at once. Shh, don't tell anybody. And then both those movies were supposed to come out this summer, and then the pandemic hits. I'm like, fuck! I was like, this was my summer.
Yeah.
And then they put Greyhound out on Apple TV.
Apple TV, yeah.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. Nobody saw it. Like that was a shame. It looked good too.
Tenet, I think everybody I've known that's seen it really enjoyed it, but it's a Chris Nolan film and it's a mind bender. It's his version of a Bond film with, time jumping element, completely based in science because Nolan's brain is like this big.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan, and it was really great because I basically was able to design all the military elements with him and kind of what those would look like. And then Jordo, you spent some time at our shop working on some of the tactical gear for it that we custom built. But it was valuable experience and very memorable working closely with Chris. He's a beast. Yeah. That dude is a beast. He knows what he wants and he gets it. He doesn't dilly-dally around. He'll do things in 2 and 3 takes and move on. He's very specific. The guys loved him because he's like a leader. Yeah. There's no chairs on the set. He's constantly on the move. But yeah, he's a beast. You don't want to cross him. He will eat you alive. But hey, that's I think what good leaders should be like that.
Yeah.
I had to read the script 3 times just to figure out what the fuck it meant. What it meant.
Yeah.
Holy. Yeah, I had to get on I'm on page 104, and I'm like, fuck, and I have to go back to 87.
You got to go get a master's degree and then come back, and
I actually had a flow chart to figure out continuity and just kind of some of the things, so that really helped a lot. And then, that's not a giveaway, but there's a lot of backwards action in it. So I mean, Jordan, all the guys. Donovan, you probably know Paul Meixner. And,
Oh yeah.
So
He says
great.
hi, by the way. I talked to him earlier today. He said,
Oh,
say
cool,
hi.
yeah. Right on. We keep phone tagging each other. It's sort of our MO, you know.
Yeah.
But Paul's a great guy. But
Yeah.
I ended up getting a bunch of dudes on it. You know, we had over 400 and something people on the set between the NATO Special Forces Task Force and the Russian bad guys. I'd say 80% were veterans, 20% were like desert rats from out in Indio and Palm Springs. But Paul and Peter Neuhofer and a couple of the guys had to, with stunts, teach 400 people how to do tactical maneuvers backwards.
Wow.
So you had like fire team wedges, a platoon in the assault, and they do it that way. Then they do it backwards, uphill, and it was crazy.
Wow.
And then they load and unload a Chinook backwards and forwards. It was fucking weird, but it was cool. Soldiers are flexible, so and I think they all love the sort of the creativity of it, and their skills were very much appreciated by the production and by Nolan himself. He's very gracious. He loved having all those freaking, all the guys and girls out there that it served. He really got a kick out of spending that much time with them.
That's great to hear about Nolan. I've always, Nolan was one of my top filmmakers, from the start. Like I saw, his early work and I loved it. And I had the privilege of getting to see him live at one point. And he just struck me as a pretty well thought out, humble guy who, really just, like you said, he knows what he wants and he's a good leader. And, I can't argue with that.
Can't ask for more, good leadership and the leader's actually brilliant,
Yeah, man.
He and his brother are both like super bright guys. His brother created Interest.
Is it Jonathan or?
Yeah, Jonathan.
Yeah.
He created Person of Interest and rebooted Westworld, from the old Saw movie. Westworld, crazy fucking good.
Yeah.
So, No, I've been lucky. Every once in a while I find myself in a situation working with somebody. I go, holy fucking shit, this is cool.
Yeah, you're walking among giants.
Starstruck or anything. But, every once in a while I go, yes, Tom Cruise, I can make that happen. It's hilarious, on Maverick. I got to know Tom and work with him, and he's a bitchin' guy. He actually should have been a fucking operator,
I've heard that. I've heard when people talk about the most disciplined guys in Hollywood, they always mention Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves. And
top of the list.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise, there's that movie Collateral, where he's clearly, I don't think they ever get into his background in the movie, but he's clearly supposed to be some sort of operator, whether he was SF or he's somewhere.
He's supposed to be a CAD guy. I actually did a little work on that film. And
no flipping way. That was a great movie.
Well, do you recognize the hair?
Oh yeah, there you go. You got that wolf, that lone wolf
Vincent
thing
had
going
my
on.
Hair that was before I dyed it. I was shocked by plant hair. But no, he's wearing a gray suit throughout the movie. Yep. And I was able to get together with actually Jeffrey Curlin, the same costume designer as Tenet. And I told Jeffrey, I said, well, if I was coming into town to cap a bunch of people on the move and then just get the fuck right out of town in 2 days, I just wear a gray suit. You can go anywhere, And you take you're an accountant, take off the tie. You're on your way to a club. Take off the jacket, grab a clipboard, and you're an IT guy. It's just, it blends. You become the gray man. So that's why he's wearing that gray suit.
It works. It totally works. I always loved his style in that, and I thought it symbolically. I always thought it kind of makes him look like a wolf, with the hair and everything. But that totally makes sense. That's awesome, man. That's talk about iconic. What a great decision.
Oh hell, man, can't go wrong there. That freaking guy is brilliant.
Oh, for sure.
That's insane. So you have anything when you work on these sets? Do you keep any? You have any special pieces that would be something people would probably want to see? Or
I do. It's funny. A lot of times we end up doing 3-4 things. Like aging, like on 12 Strong.
Yeah.
We had 4 sets of gear and uniforms. Some actually a little more sets of the uniforms for each guy because they go from mission state at the beginning, you know, to infill to like horrendous fucking experience and end up, you know, danger close bombed at the end and all this stuff. So everything has to progressively age. So I have a few collectors that love to buy stuff from me, and there's things I keep. You know, I've got some things I've kept through the years. Sometimes I end up providing the stuff so that I own it afterwards, which is great. You know,
that's awesome.
Yeah, like I worked on Tears of the Sun way back when as a vendor and a consultant, but I provided all the gear for that. It was the first time I ever eBayed. And I sold Bruce Willis his H gear, his gloves, and his watch for $8,000. Holy shit, there's something to this eBay thing.
Wow.
So I did 8 sets of gear on each guy in that film. So I sold off like 4 sets of gear for each guy. I cleared like $45,000 my first week on eBay. Wow. And it was nuts. I was like, I'm going to start saving things. So yeah, I've got a little stash of things, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a guy shot a thing in our shot a little snippet at our shop where I walked him through some like cool keepsakes from different shows, and I think he's going to come back and do like kind of expanded version of it. But we're actually creating our own YouTube content. Me and the guys are working on it right now. We've been shooting on and off for like 6 months.
That's awesome.
And we're going to do a thing. I think we're going to call it Sin Attack, maybe something like that, because it's a mixture of military, tactical, and like movie lifestyle stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe a little surfing and rock and roll mixed in there too, you know?
Yeah. That'd be so cool.
That'll keep me distracted from, you know, all the things that I need to be doing, you know.
Well, if it's interesting enough. Talking about Dumbo drop, one of the first things we're going to drop is just fucking 3 weeks ago, I had Jim Morris sitting in here in my living room, and he lives nearby, but we hadn't connected in a while. And I did this project where I Tiger Strike painted this surfboard and branded it with the Mac V SOG logo. As I'm hand painting this surfboard, I'm talking about the history of SOG and, you know, just different stories and aspects. And then we're going to cut to the interview with Jim Morris, and he's going to talk about all the SOG missions he strap hung, you know, talk about all the personalities, you know, all the guys he knows. And so that's the kind of thing we're going to do. And then, you know, and then some pure like making of behind the scenes of 12 Strong, you know, whatever.
Yeah. If I was to tell our listeners, like if I was to impart one thing to our listeners, tune in for that Mac V SOG, those Mac V SOG episodes. Cause I mean, one, tiger stripes are just the best camo ever. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I love tiger stripes. And then two, Mac V SOG, the stories that come out of that are like what I was talking about earlier with Black Ops in Vietnam. It's just, it's everything you ever saw in movies, you know, and add 11.
You couldn't make this shit up.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
So outrageous.
Yeah. And when you hear it from the guys, like when you hear the, you know, firsthand stories, or like, you know, when somebody close is there, it's just, it's really, it blows you away.
Yeah, no, I remember like in service, my first, you know, my sergeant major, my team sergeant, Rick, my first comms guy, they were SOG veterans, you know, and there they are still wearing, you know, wearing the tree suit, the uniform, you know, throughout the 90s. I was raised by fucking SOG operators. So I literally have, you know, a real place in my heart for them, but they inspired me as a young soldier and a young man, you know, just fucking believe in something, live up to it, never let your teammates down no matter what, you know. Yeah. What a great lesson for kids today. Like Jocko's had a bunch of those guys on.
Oh yeah.
Like Tim Myers.
That's where I've heard most of the stories is listening to those episodes, and it's just I mean, what a absolute legends, those guys.
Yeah, I mean, look up to guys like that. I mean, I don't see why kids look up to a guy who bounces a ball around and plays a child's game. I really don't. I don't get that. I mean, you can admire that, but is that a role model? Not really, unless you want to be a basketball player. Yeah. But in life and being a citizen and just contributing to society, you know, they can do a lot better in who they look up to. That's for sure.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
agree with that.
That's what I've
This
always.
is old boomer just freaking like, yeah, get off my lawn.
Well, I've always said that, like a lot of people ask, like, why do you have so many like veterans on your show? Why are you like into like military stuff? I'm like, those guys are like heroes. I look up to those guys. Like, you're gonna wear some guy's name on a jersey and go be a cheerleader in a crowd. Like, I want to support these guys that are doing some badass things.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've known some total fucking shitheads in uniform.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
Yeah.
they did one thing, they made one decision. They signed that piece of paper to serve their nation. If that's the only thing they ever did right, well, that's saying something,
Sure.
But it is an amalgamation of society. But for the most part, the whole thing exists based on teamwork.
Yeah.
And it would have died a long time ago if that wasn't something that humans naturally have in them once, and you can bring it out and deepen, that level of man's commitment to man, men and women, whatever, humankind, right?
Personhood.
My pronouns are tiger shark. Fuck you.
Well,
Oh no, sorry. Fuck them.
That's funny, man. You mentioned maybe doing rock and roll on that channel. Is there a new Monkees reunion coming anytime soon, or is that?
Probably, usually, yeah. We were going to play this summer. We were working it out, and of course, the old Pando ruined that.
Yeah,
we were going to put a gig in for. We were going to do something here in Southern California, and we were hopefully going to play with Larry, our band member's other band, Colorvine, which is a big band in the Midwest.
Oh, nice.
And we were probably going to open for them or do something with them, and well, that all fell to the wayside. So, between that and like a super good friend of mine used to be my neighbor in Sherman Oaks is Steve Gorman, the drummer of the Black Crowes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's got a really great new band. We still keep in touch, so. He and I palled around for a couple years, raising our kids together and having adventures. So I was going to get Steve to come on and shoot the shit with him. And, so, going to just try to keep people interested in things maybe that I'm interested in. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's awesome, man.
Speaking of things that you're interested in, so it's always interesting. Like if you couldn't tell, I'm a huge war movie fan. Like I love military and movies and stuff. And one thing that as my sort of understanding matured, I started to realize, okay, it's obviously dramatized. There's a certain point where you have to balance the drama with the reality, and
there are no perfect military films.
So that's what I was going to ask. Is like out of all of them, like what would you say? Because I always ask this of veterans in particular. Like, what would you say is like the closest in terms of realism, and then it just one that you enjoy, and then actually a third thing. What's the best movie you ever worked on?
Okay. Wow. All right. So I'd have to say in terms of just reality and technical, proficiency, Band of Brothers. Whoa. Right.
Yeah.
Black Hawk Down because all the real participants contributed to that film. I worked on the first 3 scripts when it was a Disney project. And then I basically I pushed to get the real guys involved in the Army info office, ended up pushing that through. And when you see the film, you've got the Night Stalkers flying there. Fucking, the former commander of CAG was there. They had third battalion Rangers fast roping for them. But at the same time, I knew a lot of those guys. My cousin was in 3rd Ranger Battalion. All those guys. I was at Fort Benning this summer. All those platoon leaders took over, and they were my cousin's peers. So I'd go drinking with those guys. I was their designated driver. But when I watched the movie, Josh Hartnett does everything he does is a combination of Larry Perino and Tom DiTomaso and a couple other guys, plus what that character actually did. So there's things in that, if you know the real guys and you know the real story, you go, oh, that's fucking bullshit. But you can go, holy shit, they took the time to you can't have 800 characters. You got to narrow it down.
Yeah.
You know, it's for entertainment value, but in some cases there's a historical significance and importance of, you know, that story. So I'd admire how they did it there. And I know it's never perfect. Like, I have to choose my battles on a set as a military advisor. I have to go, well, this is what I think is most important, and I'm going to pay attention to this, and I'm not going to mention it because they won't understand it and they might want to change it. And then the director's going to go, hey, man, you know, I really have to do it. And you're like, oh, fuck. Well, hey, you do that, but let me do this.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of that goes on, you know. And it's funny because, you know, I know a lot of young, hot Chargers. They show up to be tech advisors, you know, and I get them on sets and they just stood in there going, what the fuck's going on? And they're like, that guy wouldn't be doing that. I go, dude, that guy is this. Hang on, where's my? He's this big on lens right now. He could be freaking combat jacking and nobody would know. He's tiny. You know, so you can't get lost in the grass.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about what the actual scene that's close to the lens is doing.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's time on target and you learn it. It's a lot of it's filmmaking, you know. I'd say it's almost most of it is filmmaking because you have to find ways to tell, you know, why this is important, you know, and also certain military SOPs or behaviors, you know, how they influence a story, find a way to show that, you know, as opposed to explaining it verbally. And, you know, it's interesting. It's always a challenge and you really can't please everyone, you know, like on 12 Strong, another great story. And I knew a couple of those guys, and in the real story, they had two Air Force JTACs with them and a CIA case officer. A paramilitary wing guy who I actually know is an old friend of mine, a former 3rd Ranger Battalion guy. Well, in the movie, he just, after 10 minutes, rides away into the desert. But he was with that ODA the entire fight. And so were the two JTACs. But in the movie, there's no two JTACs because the company didn't want to pay 15 guys every day to show up on the set. They wanted to pay 12, which allowed them to have 100 Afghans at all times. You know, it's like a give and take. But for the most part, the story's there, you know, the truth and body of what, you know, those guys accomplished, you know, Nutch and Pennington, the real guys.
It's an amazing story.
Oh, fucking is to be admired. Those guys literally, you know, they didn't think they were coming back, you know. Yeah. And they walked into the grand unknown, one of the first ODAs on the ground, you know. That's admirable. That's who you should look up to. You know, that's this kind of guys that are shining examples of good Americans and good human beings. But then, you know, it gets exaggerated here and there, you know, like Michael Shannon's character, he wasn't blown up by an S-vest. You know, they weren't even using S-vests in 01 anyway, but that's a movie thing. It's certainly dramatic, you know, but the real guy, Bob Pennington, threw his back out, you know, and he was casevac, but not for being blown up, you know. But there's a great shot of Michael Shannon being pulled off the horse because his back is fucked up. Yeah, I remember that. He starts bombing. He goes, well, you can't do anything. He goes, I don't have to, you know, I can lay down and call bombs in. And that was the real thing that Bob Pennington did, you know. And then they had to drive it. They actually had a couple gators that you don't see in the movie. Those were dropped off. So there were a few guys on quads driving around, and they had, you know, they basically had, you know, the Team XO strapped to a backboard on a quad riding up and down the mountain so he could call it fire. That's cool shit, you know.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, you know, it's just you're never going to nail it 100%. It's just not in the cards, you know. Even when I direct, you know, now I'm the director, and then I have a military advisor coming up to me and going, "Hey, dude, what about?" And I'm like, dude, I know this dance. And I'm going to give you that, but I got to do this. You know, because sometimes it's about telling the story.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I certainly would never do it in a way that dishonors, you know, our service members. I mean,
for sure.
That's a no-go. I've walked off sets when it was stupid. I said, that's it, I'm done. Yeah. You know, but even I fuck up things. Literally, I was just on a film in New Mexico, and it's sort of an homage to 12 Strong. it's a half a team and their interpreter, so we call it 5 Strong and their buddy Muhammad. That's my working title for it. It's actually about a rodeo cowboy who ends up being a horse soldier, in Afghanistan. Nice. So I play the battalion sergeant major, and no shit, I walk into the briefing room with my beret on backwards with the flash over the wrong eye. Because I was the second unit director, I was rewriting the script for them, and now all of a sudden they're like, "Why don't you play the sergeant major?" I'm like, "Okay," and I'm throwing on a uniform. Take 5 minutes to figure out, and I totally just, go in and wing the entire fucking their initial mission brief or whatever, and then and afterwards I'm realizing I had my beret on backwards, but thank God I walk into the briefing room and immediately pull it off. And set it on the podium. But that I should know better.
And you know what?
Fucked that up.
You just got to talk. Just talk to the editor. He'll just flip the image, and then it'll be on the right side of your head.
I mean, nobody's freaking perfect, but honestly, preparation definitely, prevents piss poor performance. But this was like such a fly by the seat of your pants operation. We had to do this massive cavalry charge for no money, for very limited resources. We only brought a couple some real stunt guys with me, and my stunt coordinator, Matt Anderson, who's actually was my light weapons sergeant in the reserves. We served together, and he's one of the core Fast and Furious stunt guys. But I got called about this little movie that was an homage to the horse soldiers, and I was standing in Arlington National Cemetery burying my mother next to my dad. And this was maybe like a month after they fucked up DC downtown. And I'd shown my daughter Lafayette Square, and it was just fucked up. So I get this phone call after we buried my mom, and I'm standing amongst 400,000 great Americans, buried at Arlington. And this guy called me and goes, "Hey, we don't have a lot of money, but this is what the movie's about." And I'm like, "America, fuck yeah." I'm there. Let's make your movie, dude. And so we hauled our ass out to Cimarron. And Matt, my buddy, he was a former 5th group guy and 3rd group guy. So he was like, "Yeah, they're making this. We're going to fucking do it and make it look right." So we got a bunch of dudes and went out there and knocked it out. But, it wasn't a big studio film. But we cared about it, It's got something to say. It's a faith-based film about a cowboy who fucks up his life, ends up joining the army prior to GWAT, and then goes through the Q course and all this stuff. And this cowboy actually wrote the movie, so all the cowboy stuff's really cool, But the military stuff was kind of assed up the way it was written. So I rewrote their script, and we jumped in there and fixed as much as we could. And that was cool. It was like a great little opportunity to do another one that means something,
Yeah, you'll have to let us know when it comes out, and we'll have you on to promote it. And I'd love to see that. That sounds great.
That's awesome,
great.
man.
Well, I light my 3rd cigarette.
Hey, smoke them if you got them.
As we close out, Jared, if people want to find you, where can they go?
We've got 2 horrible websites that have been under construction for like 8 years. It's daggermediagroup.com. We're actually going to fix them soon, but there's a bunch of cool Call of Duty content and other things we've worked on there. SacredSwordProps.com. That's our point of supply for gear and custom manufacturing for movies and stuff. I'm on Instagram. I think I'm just called Pally Surfer, Pali Surfer.
Cool.
And I'm on Facebook, which I think my Facebook's private.
Okay.
But it's not private, so send me a request. It's my name, Jared Chandler.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks so much for doing this. And again, thank you for your service too, man. What you're doing, what you have done for the country, and what you're doing for veterans, getting them plugged in Hollywood and stuff. It's really cool.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, you're welcome. Many have done much more than I have, and many have given, paid the ultimate price. So I'm fucking humbled anytime somebody thanks me for that. No, it's great talking to you guys. I like your show, and I was able to catch, five of your casts this weekend before we talked, so you've got a new fan in me. It's really cool. It's an honor to be on here. I'll add you to my to my list because I haven't watched TV in 2 months, 3 months.
Oh, wow.
All I do is listen to podcasts. So, you know.
That's awesome.
That's the way to learn.
I'm honored to hear that.
I dig it.
Hello, gentlemen scofflaws. Thanks so much for being a loyal listener of the show, and your feedback and support is really what keeps us going and means a lot to us, so sincerely, thank you again. Now, if you're a fan of the show and you want to take your support to the next level, why not support the show on Patreon? We offer all sorts of extras on there like outtakes, extended interviews, a bonus movie podcast, and behind-the-scenes content. Better yet, we have options that start as little as $1 a month. You pay more for that at a parking meter to go in and grab a cup of coffee at Starbucks. See what I did there? If you're interested in helping support the show, please check out patreon.com/gentscofflaw or click the support link on the website. Again, that's patreon.com/gentscofflaw. We look forward to having you as part of our team. All right. Good time talking to Jared.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
He's what a solid dude.
Yeah, we gotta go grab a beer sometime. Let's. You know what time it is, Donovan? You know what time it is?
Showtime.
It's showtime. It is time to announce the winner of this past month's giveaway. This winner is going to win a CAD aftershave and cologne from Phoenix Shaving, as well as some swag. We threw in a koozie, some stickers, some of our new Gentleman Scofflaw field notes books.
Yep.
Or what is it? Field notes or Moleskine?
I would go with field notes.
Yeah, field notes.
I think it's field notes. You know, it's that
kind of craft paper looking kind of notebook. And a little Gentleman Scofflaw button, a bunch of fun stuff is all coming your way. We might throw in some other extras to it. We get a lot of stuff from friends that send us stuff that just throw in some fun stuff. But anyway, this one is going to, let me get the drum roll going here. I have to hit the mic like Steven Tyler. I'm gonna reach over and hit the
don't
soundboard.
Ever compare yourself to Steven Tyler.
The winner is
your mouth too small.
Is Jose Me in Kids on Instagram.
Is that a made up name?
So it's JoseMeinkids. You are the winner.
Jose Me in Kids. He'll have to let us know how he spells that.
I
or
think
how
it's
he
a
says
lady. It's actually a Mrs., I think.
Really?
Yes.
Jose.
So
well, I'm offending our winner every second that I'm breathing right now because I clearly am too tired to register. That's well, congratulations, Jose.
Yeah, congratulations. You'll be getting all this fun stuff. And of course, you're always eligible to re-enter our giveaways. We don't discriminate. We just pick at random. Whoever joins in, you can win something.
We don't discriminate. We just pick who we like.
All right, Donovan, if people want to support the show, how can they do that?
Well, you can find us on the YouTubes. You can find us on Facebook. That's Facebook. We're on Instagram. We also have a website where you can track down our stuff.
Yeah.
You're putting out clips, I think, on Instagram these days, right?
Clips.
Like we're putting out some nice little small clips. So if you're ever looking for a nice little break, little breaky break, go ahead and look up one of those clips. It'll be a nice little tidbit. And then we also have a merch shop. We have Patreon. I think you can find the podcast on most podcast platforms, but I mean, what other platforms are there other than Spotify and maybe Spotify? No, I mean, I'm sure it's on Stitcher and Google Play and all that good stuff. So
all that fun stuff. Let us know where you listen. I'm always curious to know where people prefer to listen. I just pull up the podcast app on my phone, on the Apple phone. So
well, some of us don't have Apple phones, Jordan.
I know,
We're not
that's
all
why I'm
rich
curious.
like you. We can't all be moving our friends out every day getting bank.
My 4-year-old Apple phone, it has always on 20% battery.
Grubby little mitts all over Thomas Kincaid's life work.
I could have totally swiped that and sold it on eBay. That would have been a good move for me.
As not your lawyer, I would highly discourage from saying that.
Discourage me from saying that. Also, yeah, go ahead and get the new patriotic T-shirts that we have.
I mean, let's be honest. Whether you're an American or not, that's a good shirt for any day, any day of the week, any day of the year.
We also have neck gaiters that have the same image and flag on them, as well as different variations that you can get. One that looks like a bandana, one that has the wooden background. Lots of fun stuff to cover up your mug during either the cold weather or this weird COVID thing. If people make you wear a mask in your state, you might as well get something that's cool looking.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Donovan, you are a gentleman in the scofflaw, my friend.
As are you.
And you guys have a great week.
This has been the Gentleman's Scofflaw Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Visit us on the interwebs at gentlemanscofflaw.com.
Captain says his ice on the river. We ain't getting home if we don't break through. So damn cold, I can't help but shiver. Rise and shine, we got work to do. Hey!